Hello, everybody. Talk to me, sis fans and subscribers. We're back again twice this week. You're going to get sick of us this week. Everybody got to hear from us on Tuesday with the bonus episode. So we hope you enjoyed that. But we are continuing our series that we are so thrilled about. And this guest is really special because her son has been on since season 1.
Yes.
And he is the +1 to our beloved OG, Abby.
Yes.
He's the lion to Abby's lioness. We have David Isaacman's mom, Debbie, with us today in studio. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Lise and Nicci. It's exciting to be on this. I think
Oh,
it's a show.
we are so happy to have you. So many people wanted to hear David's story and find out more about, his growing up years and how that looked. So this is great.
Great. Excited.
We are too. So happy to have you. So with all the moms, Debbie, we've just kind of started off with let's talk a little bit about who was Debbie before Debbie was a mom. So give us a little background on your life before you got married, before children came into the picture.
Okay. Was 17 years old. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, 17 years old, graduated from high school. Didn't know what I was going to do. My parents weren't real college people. They were just, hardworking. And I thought maybe I would go to junior college. And I had 2 aunts that said, you should take the government test. And they bugged me. They worked for the government. I said, okay, I took it. I immediately got a call and I had an interview. And I was interviewed and they said to me, we have to do a top secret clearance. I said, fine. And probably a few weeks later, I started working for Secret Service. So I
That's so cool.
worked for Secret Service it was wonderful. At that time, there were not female agents. There weren't really female agents, but I was young. I did amazing things. I traveled a lot. I met presidents. I can tell counterfeit currency, went on some undercover buys. I did a lot. So I did that for 10 years. And then I decided I can always go back to the government. I was 27. I can go back to the government. And somebody said, there's a talent, I have a really good friend with a talent agency in Beverly Hills. I applied, I got hired. It didn't work out for me. I was used to working with top secret people. And it was just a different kind of clientele, entertainment clientele. It was just a hard transition. And so somebody said to me, oh, go work, their airline is hiring. So they flew me down to San Diego and I took a job in the office and I was based in LA. I worked my way up. I ended up, when I left, I worked there for 10 years. I met Alan, got married. I was in charge of flight attendants for the whole West Coast.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
yeah, it was an exciting job. That was just as exciting in a different way as Secret Service. You never knew what your day was going to be, what 10 minutes was going to be. You had airline problems, you had passenger problems, you had employee problems, you had aircraft problems, a lot of stuff going on. And about 5 years into it, Alan and I married. We had met when I worked for Secret Service. He worked in public defender's office and then went into private practice, but I was really young. I was just really young. So we got married. I ended up in fertility and I ended up getting pregnant. I was surprised. I didn't even know I was pregnant. And then I was really shocked it was triplets.
Oh,
I couldn't
yes.
believe it.
That would be a shocker.
It wasn't, well, at least you have twins, so I don't know if you were
So
shocked.
so first of all, you're a Bond girl. Who
I
knew? You're basically, can you kill me with your pinky, Debbie? What kind of skills do you have?
No, I'm observant.
I love this this is why I love doing this series is and I really love hearing about pre-husband and kids. So that's exciting. So wait,
Yeah.
if I'm tracking this right, you were like 17, 18 when you started with the Secret Service?
When I started. Can you believe I was a
So,
baby?
No,
And
you could start that young. Wow.
this is what you have to remember. If you took your kids now and the things that they know that you don't know, so here I go into an office and I'm, up to speed on all the things that a lot of people aren't up to speed on. And you have to be kind of on your toes. So, and I was trainable. I could do things that a lot of people couldn't do who had been there a long time. So I found that I was used for a lot of things. I was used for a lot of things. It was a great time.
That's incredible. I
It
like
is.
It was a great time.
it's like
And
my
so
favorite fun fact of any of the moms so far.
That honestly,
popular.
Debbie, that was the last thing I expected
Yeah,
you to lead off with. I would have never thought you were going to say, oh, by the way, I worked for the Secret Service. I'm like, what?
yeah, yeah.
That is
So
awesome.
is there a little bit of an age gap with you and Alan? Like was he like you were like, "Hey, I'm young. I just haven't lived my life. Like I'm not ready." So you
And
clearly like found
it,
your person young, but you
he,
like waited.
yeah, he was going into private practice. And I was 17. I don't even remember when we first went out, even if I was 21, and he's
Mhm.
off going into private practice. And
Right.
he had a big career as well. And we kind of, what happened was when I worked for the airline, I saw an article in the paper that he had argued in the Supreme Court, and I wrote a note to him, and we kind of reconnected.
Oh,
So,
good move.
so yeah, so that was the
Well
this,
played, Debbie.
and
Go,
then
Debbie.
so I'm pregnant with triplets. I have an easy pregnancy, uh, but a big job.
Mhm.
And what I would do is I would go to Pittsburgh. I would take an early morning flight, the first flight out, fly into Pittsburgh, schedule my meetings, and fly home because it was that same day, because it was so hard to adjust with time change the next day.
Yeah.
So when I had my kids at the time, so the kids, I did a C-section. They were about 3.5 weeks early. uh, David and I came home at 3 days. He was a little over 4 pounds. Aubrey came home 2 days like after David did, and Allison stayed in the regular maternity ward till she got to 4 pounds because kids come home at 4 pounds. So she came home at 11 days. And then I decided that, everything seemed fine. So it was time for me to leave because I couldn't do my job the way that I needed to and, be a mom and do all of those things. So I ended up quitting. And then the story began.
Yeah.
You see, they all stayed in the same, they grew up, they all stayed in the same, when they first brought them home, all three of them were in the same crib. And then, they each had their own crib and they were in the room. And then I could see that in some instances, uh, David was doing things a little differently than the girls, and he would do some things before the girls, but I could see in major things that there was a little bit of a problem. I could see he was lining up his toys in a row. I could see he was flapping his hands. I could see he was on his tiptoes. So we would go to the pediatrician, and he said, well, let's test, make sure it's not a hearing problem. So we did all that. It wasn't a hearing problem. And then speech, he was behind in speech. Um, and he was in speech. So we started speech therapy, and then he was diagnosed with autism. So
What
now
Debbie.
age?
Yeah.
it was about 2.5.
Okay. Debbie,
That's
what ages would you say you started seeing the lining up of toys and the hand flapping and like the differences from your girls?
probably it became more evident probably like 9 months, 10 months,
Okay.
the
So
thing.
pretty early in his life.
And he had I mean, I could compare. It was easy to compare. It really was.
Right. Because you had two girls. Yes.
Except for then people would say, it's a boy, boys are slower.
Mhm.
That's, I get that a lot. It's a boy, boys are slower. So once he was diagnosed, we really decided to really look at everything. And we lived by UCLA, and there was Ivar Lovis, the Lovis Institute, specialized in ABA. He was kind of the pioneer, and we called, and they only took 10 kids at the time, and they were full. And we begged them and said, we're different. It's a triplet. Do you have a multiple? Anyway, they ended up accepting us. Um, and at the time, so what happened is we got accepted into this intensive program. So David would, a person from ABA would come to your house, they would work on different things. They would observe and work on different things. And then you would have meetings. I think it was once every 2 or 3 weeks, you and your child would go into the office. They also had students who were taking the classes come to our house so they could observe and see if this is something they wanted to do. And they always had a supervisor there. Of course, I was always there, not necessarily in the room, but he responded to it. He was responding very well to the ABA therapy. They were really good. It was systematic. I made thousands of flashcards.
Me too.
Yeah, everybody, right? At that time, the internet wasn't like he had to do those things by hand.
Yep.
You had
All
to
of
do,
it. All of
you had
it.
to laminate them, you had to do everything by hand. So, so we continue with ABA, and the girls go into preschool. And then the preschool said, well, why isn't David coming? So at that point, we decided that maybe what we would do is hold him back a year, because you can't have three teachers in the same grade. Usually in most things, it was usually two teachers. So it was easy to hold him back. Um, and he did go to preschool for 1 year. Then from there, the girls, started kindergarten, and that was tricky, but it was an automatic way for me to see what was being taught. They could come home,
Yes.
we could see it at ABA, we could see what was being done. So we modeled, and David did very well with modeling. He really did well with modeling. And the girls start kindergarten, and we held David back a year, and then we go in to the school district, and we were firm believers in public school. We wanted our kids to go to public school. We went to public school. We wanted our
Yep.
kids to go. So we went into the school, and the Lovas Institute said, we'll accompany David to school. So they ended up
Oh,
going to school
nice.
with him in the very beginning. So that was
So, Debbie, I have a question, if it's okay. And I just have a question about here, and I just want to back up a little bit. And this is so interesting, but like, you're a first time mom,
uh-huh,
you have multiples,
uh-huh,
because I had twins, but I had them second. And I
yeah,
remember when I had them thinking, I don't know that I could have done this. You had three and you were a new mom.
yeah.
So
I've been
kudos to that. I don't know even how, it just because
really
every
crazy.
noise they make, you jump, you're scared.
Yeah.
And then when you started to see things with David and then you got him diagnosed, I just want to ask, like, we've been, and it's okay if you're not comfortable, but been very upfront about like the kind of the mourning, the heartbreak, but then you have these two other beautiful little girls. Were you concerned? Did you have them assessed? Or were you comfortable with their tracking or where they were going?
Comfortable with their tracking, and got assurances from the pediatrician, and I could see, and the girls were on track. The girls
Yeah.
were on track. And what helped David is they were great models.
You had built-in peers. Yeah.
His age, it was
Right.
like an automatic play date, was automatic. And so sometimes what they would do in ABA is say, okay, Allison or Aubrey, do this. And
Yeah.
they would do it. And then David would watch, and then they'd say, do this. And then David would do that. I mean, it was really kind of a fascinating thing, but it was a lot of work. It was, oh, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And then once you get into the school, it really becomes a little tricky there because you have the school and you have, how is it going to be the teacher? How, is this the right fit? Is everything going to be okay? so he so we go into the school and they were really good about it. It was interesting for me to see. I saw when I went into schools that, there were a bunch of kids with different issues. You could see it in the playground, you could see it in the classroom, you could see it in lots of different places. And I didn't really feel that David was ever really picked on, but that's because he had someone with him. And as far as birthdays and things, it was a lot of kids because they're all the same age. So
And the
birthday party,
sisters.
yeah, yeah, it was automatic. Lots of friends, lots of kids. It was just a little bit different as far as,
Wonderful, though. How wonderful for David, that he had those automatic playmates and peers and all that modeling. That's what a blessing. What a blessing the girls were.
yeah. And then after you do the ABA, you have to go to speech therapy. You have to go to the occupational. You know how you have to go to here, you have to go there. You have to shuffle a lot of different things during that time. And he was in a K-5. The school that they started in was a K-5. And I recognized that that might not work because the middle school was somewhere else. So we ended up, I was a little nervous about it, switching schools when David was in third grade and the girls were in fourth grade. And we moved to a district that had a K-8 because I thought they could all be together. We can kind of figure this thing out. And when we moved into a different district. And when we did that, uh, Love Us, because they were early intervention, said, we're not going to go to school with David, but we'll train the school aide.
Oh, very nice.
So they trained the school aide. School aide was with David through high school, same person.
That's awesome.
Isn't that it's unbelievable. It was the same
Yes. What?
through.
That's amazing consistency. Wow.
And so in that time, the girls, this was kind of interesting for me. The girls wanted to play piano. Well, I didn't play piano. Alan didn't play piano. Nobody played. We had a keyboard somebody gave us. So I said, okay. And we had the piano teacher, and the piano teacher said to me, well, why isn't David playing? And I said, well, how are you going to teach? I thought, how's she going to teach him? How will that be? Well, guess what? She taught him.
I
She taught
love it.
him. And what she did is she keyed on that he loved Disney. So she taught him how to read music, and then she taught him Disney tunes on the piano.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then
So
David,
cool.
he ended up doing it. He ended up doing it longer than the girls did it. He did piano longer than the girls did it. So then the next thing was we as we go on this journey with school, and the teachers were great, we would have our yearly IEPs. We really kind of it was nice, and they would pull them in and out of different, at different times. And then we hit middle school, and you have to rotate from class to class, different teachers, have the consistency of the same teacher. That was tricky because some teachers are better organized than others,
For
and that
sure.
makes a difference. You need somebody who's really, David needed somebody very organized. So he would go in and out of special ed. And then we ended up with religious school. And so they said, how come David's not in religious school? And I thought, oh my gosh, I felt terrible. And I thought, well, yeah, you can go to religious school. We can do it. And it's kind of that trust system that you have. okay, well, let it happen and see what happens. Um, and they did it. He did. These teachers are amazing. I
They
mean, if
are.
you give some of them a chance, they can work wonders. And it's usually the parent who's more hesitant. I was the one who was really hesitant. They did a B'nai Mitzvah. I couldn't speak Hebrew. I didn't know Hebrew. And yet he could get up there and they taught him. It was like a miracle. How did that
Oh,
happen?
that's
So did
so
he have a bar
cool.
mitzvah? Did he have
Yeah,
a bar mitzvah and he read from the Torah?
he read from the Torah. It was a miracle. It,
That's amazing, Debbie.
Thank
Oh,
you. Was interesting because they taught flashcards. It was the same kind of process, and you watch it, and it's kind of having that trust and
uh-huh.
you test it as a parent all the time because you think your child can't do certain things that they can do.
So
And
much more.
it, 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 I'll tell you the rest of it because it goes back, it even goes further. So the girls were Girl Scouts, and I was a Girl Scout leader with a friend. And we would do these like camping trips. They would go to camp, they would do all these things. And David would watch and thought, there wasn't a Boy Scout troop. There wasn't anything like that. Like, how do you do that? What do you do? Right. So I'll fast forward. So we go into high school and we get through high school and he would be pulled out. He made friends in high school. He would go into special ed on certain classes and not special ed. He wanted to be in band in the worst way and wanted to play the triangle. He wanted to be
Yeah.
in band, was his dream. Well, the band teacher said no, it was an award-winning band.
Give me this band person's number. I'm pulling up.
What happened was we went in and he finally got into band. And the band teacher called me back and thanked me because David was one of his best students. Those stories where just give him a chance. He wants to do it.
Why
Go,
didn't he let him try out before he shut him down? Like that makes me this is where my mama bear gets mad. Debbie, were you
No, it was horrible. I couldn't understand, and I recognized it was an award-winning band, and but he didn't do sports. David
yeah.
didn't like sports. He didn't really like acting or anything like that. And
Uh-huh.
one of the ABA teachers said to me, uh, "There is a program right down the street from you. I didn't even know it called the Miracle Project." And they do acting and they do things on Zoom and in person. And that was another test for me because you go there and they go into a room with actors and teachers. It's run by
Wow.
Elaine Paul. It's a wonderful program. And but you're not in the room. So it's a little frightening to let go and not know
Yes.
what's going on in a room. You don't know, how's it going in the class. You don't really know, and there's nobody that you have to trust whoever it is that they'll take care of whatever it is because you don't have your aide there, you don't have anybody there. That turns out to be that was a great thing for David too. And I'll go, that is how we ended up on Love on the Spectrum, but I'll tell you that. So we're in high school, we go through all those things, and it's senior year. He gets a certificate.
what year does he graduate? What year is he graduating?
He graduated in 14.
Okay.
So he graduated in 14. The girls are off to college now. And so I meet with the counselor, and he says, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, we're going to leave. What do we do?" "Well, you can stay in school till you're 22." And I said no. So I signed off all services. I figured we're done. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to figure this thing out. And David said, "I want to go to camp." And I said, "David, you're just graduated. You want to go to camp?" So there was this place called Camp Ramal, which was wonderful. And they have a special ed section and they take kids till they're 22 and it's regular camp. But there's no contact from the parents for a month.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Sleep away. He's never slept away in his life. He's never even been to camp. Sleep away, and there's no contact for 30 days. And he begged me, and I said, okay, what's the worst that can happen? We go there. He has sleeping. He's never even slept in a sleeping bag before. It was probably a life-changing experience for him. It was the first time he's by himself. And I thought, well, he has a special diet. Da, da, da. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And
Oh
he
my
was,
gosh, this camp.
it,
Wow.
it was amazing. It was amazing. He comes back from camp, and I said, David, we're going to go. I checked out junior colleges. This college, not too far, has a program. We're going to go there. I meet with the counselors, and I said, I'll go to school with him. And they said, no, can't do it. I said, really? So we give it a try. And I sat in the car and waited, and soon realized after about 3 weeks, it wasn't working.
Okay.
So we have no services, nothing. What am I going to do? I get a call from a friend who was in that Lovas program with me and begged me to come to her house. Hadn't seen her for a year. And she had this person who had this rabbi from New York that had an organization, blah, blah, blah. She bugged me so much. I said, yeah, I'll go. I go there, and they have an organization. It was called ETA, and they had a program. You didn't have to be Jewish or anything. And they had a program where they would get it was for adults together and the same kind of needs. And they would be with an adult and they would do different things in the community. And eventually they would like to wean them into housing of some sort. So, okay, I'll try it. So we go there, and it was interesting because David really learned a lot of things. He had learned a lot of through modeling. He learned like how to he learned money, how to make change. He learned how to do a check, how to write a check, he learned all kinds of things. And so he worked for a little bit. They would go and volunteer at a high school, and they would do the cash register, and they would do different things. And they all had to learn to get along to agree where they were going to go to lunch. So I would drive him there. I would pick him up every day. I would drive him there, pick him up. After about a couple of years, oh, and one time I walked in, and when I walked in, I said, why is David the youngest one here? I couldn't believe it. And that is because there are several people are still in the school district. He was 18. He was out of school, not he did because of services. It was a whole different realm because of services. So after a couple of years of doing that, he seemed fine. He was adjusting. We would do practice of, going to the mall and paying for things, counting your change, making sure using an ATM machine, doing all those things. We practiced all that stuff. Uh, I said he needs more, maybe a job of some sort. Well, they'll help you get a job, but the thing about it was that you had to give up that day program. And I said, I can't do that. What is the job? Well, sometimes you have to wait 6 months or a year. It has to be the right job. It could be a night job. It could be, no, that's not going to work. So he stayed in there, and I kind of hit the pavement and asked everybody I knew. I said, I just need a name of someone where
Right.
you work or something. I just need a name. You don't have to promise a job. You don't even have to know if there's a job. Just give me names. I had a very good friend who gave me the name of the somebody in Beverly Hills, city manager. And so I went back to Etta and I said, okay, I'm going to go. Here's the control freak again. I'm going to go and meet with them. And they said, no, we're going to do it. And I said, no, I worked so hard to get this name. No, 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 we're going to do it. I let them do it. They got it. And then we had to go through Department of Rehabilitation. So Etta and I went back to Department of Rehabilitation. We ended up getting approval there, and he has worked there 7 years now. And it has been the most wonderful experience he has. We ask him all the time, are you, I love my job. I love the people I work with. They love him. It is unbelievable. It's the most amazing thing. He never misses work, although he has missed a little bit lately, but really, he doesn't, it's important for him. He,
Yes, our boys too.
the independence, he loves the money, you get the
Yeah,
paycheck, you put
yeah.
it in your bank account. So he works 3 days a week, and he sees Abby, and I'll tell you that part of it, on usually Mondays and Fridays. So they see each other at least 2 or 3 times a week. His
Oh,
sweet cakes.
oh,
What he calls her sweet cakes. He texts her every morning. He he's
so cute. I love.
So how that happened was the Miracle Project told us David always said he wanted a girlfriend. And so they said, there's this program called Love on the Spectrum, and you could call. And so we called, and then we got a call back, and they said, what do you like, the whole bit. So then we'll call you, 6 months goes by, we'll call you. And then all of a sudden we get a call, and we didn't even know what the program was. I had no idea what, we didn't even know what the program was. And they said, we want to talk to you. So it was
Oh my God.
uh,
Did Lise? Did Lise disappear?
I think she did.
Oh my goodness. Uh, oh my goodness, Debbie, that was so strange. She. Oh my. Oh,
Oh, here she comes.
is she back?
So sorry.
She's
Lise.
back.
I never have internet issues at work ever, and it just said your internet gone. So I'm back. I'm hopefully.
Yours, okay, now yours is running out. I'll say yours was saying, we can totally get them to cut this out. Okay, your number's running up now because it did not, it had you at 0%, where it shows like,
I'm so
now you're back
sorry.
up at 95.
I don't know. Okay,
Oh,
okay.
don't worry.
So I want. Okay, so the last I heard was that you were like, I didn't know what this program was. You're like, but David wanted a girlfriend, and so you were like, okay, here's this program.
So they called us. So then they called us and said, okay, we want to do one more interview with you. So it was the girls and myself and David. And Alan told David something very funny. He said, David, if you're going to date, you've got to realize that they don't want to just hear about you. You've got to ask your questions. So when Emily said, David, what do you like? Tell me what you like to do. I love animals. I love, da, da, da. Emily, tell me what you like. And every time he would, repeat back what it was, and she burst out laughing. And then she said that, I think we have a match. I've never said that.
I
I've
love
never
it.
before, but I thought a match for what? I didn't know. We didn't know. So they said, okay, in the next week, we want to send over, I didn't even know who Keon was. And I think it was Jennifer to come and interview. And at that point, David, Allison, and Aubrey were living together in Century City, and the three of them were living together. And we had a very small condo, and we sold our house and moved to Laguna because the kids wanted to live on their own.
Oh,
Three of them were living on their own, and so they came out to the condo. Was a quick visit, and that was it. And then we get a call saying, it was a Friday, saying, can you be at the Animal Wildlife Park and wherever on a Monday morning at 8? And so I said, okay, we can do that. And the girl said, Mom, we're taking him. You're not taking him. When's the last time you dated? No, they said, "We know more about dating than you do. Trust me, you've been married too long." So they
That's hilarious.
they take him, and they had to be there, and they made them sit in the car, and you don't know anything. You have no idea who it
That's how
is,
it is. Yeah.
what the story is. You don't, but we're the date. We're not the main person. We're the date. So they were sitting in the car, and then the camera crew came and took David out of the
Great.
car.
Yeah.
And the girls are there, okay. And they said, you can wait in the gift shop, which really wasn't open. It was just in that area. So they go in the gift shop, and they're like, oh my God. I mean, they were like freaked out over this thing. And that they in the gift shop is Christine. And so
Oh.
they have to ask a lot of things, but they saw one thing, and they said, this was it when we knew it was right. We saw Abby's purse, and in her purse, it was open. There were a bunch of figurines of animals.
Uh-huh. I
She had,
love.
and she had all kinds of things. So they go on their date. Nobody knows anything, no contact. They set up date two, no phone number. You don't even know where they
Yeah,
live. You don't
nothing.
even know.
No, nothing. Yeah.
Absolutely unscripted documentary 100%. You know absolutely nothing till you watch it on the screen when it's released like everybody
We
else.
see it
I mean,
with everybody else. Yeah.
Yes.
they're
So many
just,
people are shocked at that. Yeah.
yeah. But see, as the date, you're not in a lot of it because you're not the main person.
Right.
So really are in the dark as to, well, how did it go? Oh, it went good. Well, how do you know it went good? How do
David's
you
like, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was perfect, you know? So, that is kind of what happened, and then towards the end, we were able to find out a phone number as they did, as you got to the end of season 1, end of filming, you could do and you knew it was kinda going along because you were going on more dates. So
Right.
you knew it was kinda going along, and then by the end of season 1, you could exchange, and then they did, and it couldn't have been a more wonderful match. It couldn't have been any more
Oh, they are precious.
perfect, and they both have grown so much. It is amazing how it is, and it's interesting too how important their siblings are in the whole process, and how exciting for their siblings to see their brother or
Yep.
sister, develop, and how you really kind of you get to know the family, and it just is
Wonderful.
amazing, amazing experience.
It
And
is.
he's grown so much, and Abby has grown so much.
Yeah, she has.
It's just been a wonderful, wonderful, absolutely wonderful experience in so many ways.
Debbie, I want to jump in. I have a few questions. Like, I'm so intrigued. I mean, the minute you said Secret Service, my ears perked up. I knew this was going to be a good conversation, but now I'm like, holy cow, she's a Secret Service lady. But okay, these are things that are running through my mind while I'm sitting here listening to you. Number one, you seem to have just like this incredible calmness and positivity about you. Like, I know for me, like one of the biggest hallmarks of my autism story was the emotional side of it and the acceptance and the adjustment and the letting go of kind of how I pictured Tanner's life to be. And now I'm asking you, I'm not saying that I know, but it sounds to me like you just had this almost like you seem so accepting of it, and like it was like you eased into it very, very well. And I'm wondering, like, with having the two girls the same age as him, do you think that was sort of helpful to your
Well,
journey of acceptance? I don't know. Like, I'm saying it in a way like I'm amazed at you. Like, I'm like, wow, you seem to have
you know,
just like rolled through it so well.
so the first thing was when I found out I was having triplets, I joined this organization, that was about triplets and stuff. And I read the first, it's a wonderful organization, but I read the first thing about it, the first newsletter, and I thought, I'm not gonna look at that. I'm not gonna let that bother me. I'm not gonna go down that and be freaked out and not
Right.
I'm not gonna do that. And I think I've done that the whole way. Like I know there are a lot of people on the internet that like blast everybody and are backseat quarterbacks
Yeah.
about you should do this or this person is this, listen to them. I don't let that stuff bother me. It doesn't bother me. They're not in,
You That's so
they're
great.
walking in our shoes and they're only seeing snippets of our life. And you can't let that bother you. Yeah. I mean, I just don't ever let it bother me. I don't.
I'm
I think
amazed. I think it's so cool. It just seems like you've had such a positive, like, proactive, accepting, we're going to just take it and make it the best it can be. I mean, that's the vibe and the energy that you give off. And I think it's
well,
beautiful.
and and with the school district, we never appealed a decision. We would go into I would go into a meeting and say, look, we're a team. We're
Mhm.
really a team. And we aren't, we want to do it together. The only time I ever little fought back really was about band, but
Yeah.
that was, the only thing that I really fought back. And then it's kind of, I also found that it's so rewarding when these teachers or when fellow classmates see this program and it's just so it makes people look at things differently and
Yes, it
be more
does.
accepting, I hope, at the end of the day.
I
I
love
really
it.
and I find that when people walk up to you, the show is so hopeful. It really is hopeful, and it doesn't everything doesn't work out in life. It doesn't work out, and it's a lot of hard work and a lot of difficult choices and circumstances, and you just hope, everybody has a chance, and, it's been a really good thing.
That's
I
amazing.
love
I
it.
know today, just as an example, I'm at work and I work in a showroom open to the public, and a customer came in and I didn't join the dot. I mean, Connor graduated high school in 2018. And she just came up and she's like, "You look so familiar." And I'm starting to get this more. And then she goes, "Wait, you're Connor's mom." And I was like, "Oh, here we go." And she's like,
Yeah.
"She was his counselor in high school." She does
Oh
watch the
my
show, but she remembers when Connor was getting bullied in ninth grade. And she brought it up to me and she goes, "And I just remembered that was like a really bad situation that took about 3 or 4 weeks to resolve." And she said, "I just will never forget him, but you with him." And it was just really sweet. But you're right. It's like, just watching the kids, not everything works out. It's not always easy. I'm so happy to hear, other than band, which I was ready to go fight that band teacher, Debbie. Let the man play the triangle, but
That's
or at
right.
least try out. Let him try out, right? But it's like, it's nice to see, that we can navigate them through these experiences. And I like I think whatever you went through in your training sounds like your airline job was insanely stressful. Like
Yeah.
It was
that, I
yeah,
can't, I
it wa
mean, that's a
you
big
would get
responsibility. So you probably
you
took
would
a lot of licks before you even had kids.
yeah, I did take a lot of licks. You would, when I worked on there, you would walk on an airplane and, people are buckled in and you have to make a split-second decision.
Yeah.
All these people looking at you, am I canceling this flight? Am I sending it? What's happening here?
That can mean
And of course,
lives.
yeah, it was a lot, and then you had issues, you had if something happened and it's not with people that you don't employees you don't know that aren't your base. And it was just, but it was exciting in the same breath. You had so many good stories in the same
Yeah.
breath, exciting things, but it's a whole combination of a lot of different things, and you always have to be at the last minute. you know you've got to make that split-second decision, and you got to live with whatever that decision is.
Now,
uh,
Debbie, how was it for you after having two such like interesting and, stressful and very, I would think, fulfilling careers and then going into being a full-time mom? Like, was that hard for you?
No, it really wasn't. It was, I didn't, I never had a nurse. I did have a live-in 5 days a week. I did have
Mhm.
that. And I would I never did a I never did a triplet stroller because I didn't want the attention. So I would wear lightweight, I would wear Allison, push a double. I would go to Target, I would hook the bag on the stroller and just
Right.
do the thing, and you would get stares and you would get stopped. It's so funny how your life comes full circle. You get stopped now for a different reason.
Right.
Very funny. It is very funny. But one of the most important things is the support of other moms and families and
Yes.
how loving they are to your kids and how inclusive they are. And that was a big deal. I mean, I really wonderful, wonderful to this day, from kindergarten on through school, through religious school, how really loving and what cheerleaders they are.
That's
It's just
amazing because I know we did public school and Connor had elementary experience was great. And we held him back in 5th grade. So he was a year behind what he should have been. Middle school was difficult, early high school. Connor will tell you high school were the best 4 years of his life though. So I find that interesting. But and
That is cool.
his twin siblings were a year behind him. And I know
okay.
Allie and Aubrey were a year ahead of David. So my two were like
Right,
kind of
right.
behind him, just keeping watch. But I know like they were always sad in the cafeteria because he ate alone. Um,
Oh,
but
um,
we found out later he did it by choice. He was like, no, this is my me time. Like, I don't want anybody.
On the podcast, he told us, he
like,
was like,
uh,
"What are you talking about? I needed to regroup. I'm fine."
But I did have a question.
well,
So when the girls were growing up, so did the girls ever, you did a lot of therapies. Did they have to go in tow with you or could they have their activities like the Girl Scouts? Sounds like you did that with them.
it was a juggle. It was I did that with them, and sometimes they would go in tow, and sometimes they would have to go to the sessions with me, and they would model. David just responded to the modeling. And this is a big step now for David. I was telling Nikki this. This is he Aubrey got her own place a block away, so they're still close. And Allison and David are together in the condo. And David would say, "Allison, I'm really hungry. Can you make me a hamburger?" And she said, "David, I'm really hungry. Can you make me a steak?" And he looked and he said, "No." And she said, "Well, then why should I make you a hamburger? I'll show you how to do it." So David's cooking for himself. He
Love it.
shopping for himself. And he stayed one night by himself. But this week is the first time he's going to be staying 5 nights by himself. I'm close by, but he's staying. The girls are gone. They've gone to Portugal for a wedding. And he is going to be 5 nights by himself. And he really wants to do this. He wants
So
to
David,
sing. So he is by himself. Hey, look, he's better at making the bed and doing all that stuff. He's really good about that.
yeah, very
But
routine,
they like
probably.
orderly. They like order. But he's
Yes.
cooking for himself and he's happy. He can walk to work. He can walk to the mall. He can go to the grocery store. He did not want to drive.
Okay,
He
so he does not drive. Okay.
not drive. Nope.
Yeah, neither
Nope.
do
How
our
does he
boys.
do
Yeah.
with like the ride share apps? Are you comfortable using any of the ride share apps? I mean, Connor uses them. He's very comfortable with them.
He is. David has used it before, but usually he'll get one of his sisters to do it, or he'll figure out, or he has a friend from when he went to Camp Ramah. He has another friend from high school that was in special ed. They'll coordinate and they'll meet and they'll go.
Right.
And Abby doesn't live that far. Abby doesn't, it's what, maybe 20-25 minutes from here
Okay.
at the so it's not that far. But he's loving life. He loves his job. Absolutely loves his job.
That is so wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
Debbie, so tell us, so you was ABA kind of like would you call it like the main therapy you did, and then you did like speech and OT around it?
ABA was the main one, and
Yes.
ABA was what really. did it for him.
Same for us with Tanner. It was that it was sort of like the backbone of everything, and then we added in everything else as kind of like a supplemental therapy. So, at what point did y'all find out about the numbers? It's synesthesia, right? The numbers as colors. Like,
You
who
know,
identified that?
yeah, I didn't know that until, I don't know how Allison got it, or I don't know who got it, but I had no idea. I didn't know
It's
it.
so cool.
I had no idea. Then Abby learned it. Abby learned it. I don't know
So,
how it works, but
what do you think? Like, what I'm trying to picture it. Like, what do you think he sees when he's so every number has a corresponding color,
right.
correct?
And what is really interesting is David can, wherever we are, he can, I don't know if he does it by color or what, like he knows where we park. It's funny because when David's with you, you don't have to worry about anything. He's gonna know where you're parked. He's gonna know he does all that stuff. He is really
That's
good. I don't
so
know
cool.
you're if Tanner and Connor are like that or not. He's really good at it. I mean,
Very
he is,
observant. Yeah.
yeah, he is really amazing.
Connor's really good. Like when we do teach him something new, like the rideshare app, he
Uh-huh.
knows. Like we've said, you do not get in that car until you've checked the license plate, and you will watch him walk to the back, and then they need to say your name. You don't tell them your name. You ask who they're there for.
Mhm.
So when we do things like that, that locks in, and that's the way it
Yeah.
goes. But I
And then
don't
Yeah.
think about parking lots. I don't know if he pays attention.
Yeah. I don't know if
oh,
Tanner does either.
David is the best one, and I'll be with friends and they say, thank God David's with us. We're like, okay, he knows exactly he knows exactly where you park. I mean, even the girls say, oh my God, we don't even know where we parked, and David knows.
That's
He
so cool.
It is a funny story. So David thought, okay, we'll try driver's ed and see what happens, right?
Yeah.
So we, he went to go get his permit. This is a funny story. And we're standing there and there's an eye chart and he looks at it and, I think nothing of it. And the person doing the testing must have saw something, she noticed something. And she said, I want you to take it. And, you have to look in that little machine. Well, the letters in the machine are different than the letters that are on the board.
Right.
And he memorized them. And so I could see by her face that she looked at him like, what are you telling me? I could tell. So he was reading what he memorized. He was so
Right.
nervous. Saw
Getting
on
it
the board,
wrong.
which was yeah, I could tell. She says, he didn't pass. He said, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I,
That isn't that
I find really cool about what just listening to David's story is really how brave he seems to be, just with intrinsic motivation. Like, I want to go to camp after high school. I
yes. I want
wanna
to be in
I
the
wanna
band.
play
Yeah.
triangle in the band,
Yeah.
piano,
Yeah.
Hebrew school. Well, just like I mean, he's pushing you to the out of your
He
comfort
is. And
zone
back out of it. And that's hard because you're so used to being in control and you
Oh
have
yeah.
to really kind of back out. And I was like, oh my God, what is going to happen at work? And, it's funny because if David is given an assignment, you can't say, hey, put this in order. This is bag, blah, blah, blah. You have to specific, break it down. This is the exact order we want it. He'll do it. He'll do it perfectly,
Every
but you have
time.
to be clear on the instructions. And now he has conversations with his coworkers.
Oh.
Coworkers are just wonderful. If they have an office event, they know David's picky about what he eats. They'll order chicken fingers and stuff for him. And they'll tease him and they follow him on the Instagram and
Oh.
TikTok. The
Yeah.
cutest thing. It really, I'm sure
Yeah.
Tiana and Connor are like that.
Yeah.
It's very sweet.
Debbie, with that, you just mentioned that he's a picky eater. Has he always been? Was that part of some of the signs and symptoms? No, he
And when he was
wasn't.
When he was little, it wasn't even a radar sign about his eating. He ate
Okay.
it, and then he became picky.
I gotcha. Okay. Did you
I
guys,
don't know.
did you ever try any of the dietary interventions or anything like that? No.
Mm.
Gotcha.
It's like it was you could go left and right, and everybody said, "Oh my God, this is he doesn't really. If he had more speech, if he had more this, OT, if he had more that, and then you just there's only so many hours in a day,
I
and
love
it's
I love your perspective because that is so right on. And for younger moms hearing, because I struggled so much with guilt and feeling like I had to do every single, like if I felt like if I didn't try every one of those therapies, I was somehow failing him. And I had so
uh,
much guilt about the gosh dang diet. Because back in those days, it was all GFCF, got
yeah,
to get them gluten free, casein free. And I'm not, I
yeah.
know it totally worked for a lot of people, but I stressed myself into the ground. And every time he would eat a chicken finger, I'd be like, oh God, what am I doing?
Yeah. No, I didn't do any of it.
Yeah.
I just didn't. And then when he went into that program, they'd have to agree where they were going for lunch. I thought, well, good luck.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And they couldn't do it. You don't give them enough credit to do the things that they do. It's like, okay, like Ramal, I never thought I was so stressed out over that all month. Are you kidding me? You
Yeah.
know,
That was, yeah.
no.
I
And
kept, yeah.
in school as an adult, almost like, oh my God. And it's the best thing that ever happened.
Yep.
And
That's,
even letting them live together, I'm like, oh my gosh, how is that gonna be? And then letting him go love on the spectrum. Mom, you're not going, we're going.
See, and
The
I
girls.
love that. He's like kind of leading his own charge and obviously got sisters
and
backing him
driving
up,
it.
and I
Yes.
love that. Just really quick on the
Well,
diet, we didn't do any of that with Connor because I remember once we were rocking and rolling and we had him diagnosed and we saw all we were doing with therapy and school and and I was like, the kid just wants a piece of pizza. Connor was a carb freak and he's a pasta man. I'm like, the man's just gonna get some pizza if that's what he wants.
Yeah.
and then what's funny is, do you notice now if you go out when they order, David is specific. I want this and I don't want this on the plate, and I don't want that. He's really good in telling the waitress or waiter whatever you want. This is what he wants. That's what he's going to
And
get.
he knows that.
I've been to Italian with David. Does he not do red sauce?
He used to. Now he doesn't do red sauce for some reason. Now he does, butter and
Butter
cheese
and cheese. I
only.
was gonna say it was like white pot, and I think it was like he was very clear about the butter and cheese.
Yeah, he is very clear. He is really clear. And then, now we have him, he's going to a weight management. We said, okay, well, maybe let's do weight management at UCLA. So, and I thought, good luck. So they said, okay, what do you take for lunch? He takes his lunch to work, and he was taking a peanut butter sandwich and he'd throw in this and that. And they said, no, 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 David, you have to go from white bread to wheat bread. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. You have to do blueberries and you have to do peanut. So they're telling him what to do and he's doing it.
He's doing it. Oh,
He's doing it. So
good job, David. Oh, that's so good. I
he's
love
doing
it.
it for his sweet cakes.
Yeah.
Now they're kind of deciding, what they want to do on their Monday or Friday, or is there something that they want to do, and how are you going to get there? What are you going to do? And Christine has let David and Abby they walk together. When she's with David, it's okay. And Christine, that was hard. It
Yeah.
was to kind of let go.
It is
Uh,
hard.
it is hard.
It is.
It's really hard. But they're happy. All of them are
That's
happy.
the blessing in
It's
all of this.
wonderful.
And I think the overarching theme, I hopefully of all of these conversations with the moms that we've had and now yours and David's story is I think, we wring our hands, we fret, we do all of the things that we just our guts drive us to do. But at the end of the day, we all have, I think, and I would argue, just despite take Love on the Spectrum, Netflix away, very happy young adults who are living fulfilling lives and they're contributing to society and they're living whole lives on their terms and on their potential. And that's the W. That's the win.
Hmm.
I agree with you. And look, we all get together. I mean, it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey.
It's been so amazing just to, I mean, just to hear everybody's story and their life before kids and you know, all of us put in so much hard work and so much love and effort and time went into getting these kids where they are. And just seeing, you know, the importance of family and sibling relationships is so inspiring. You know, and I hope that other families are hearing this and realizing it will pay off. Like all those years do eventually pay off.
It will. I agree with you. I agree with you. And siblings play a big part of it.
Sounds like your girls are
Oh,
just
they're amazing.
the
Yeah.
bomb.
They are so
All of
amazing.
them, all they're all so loving and wonderful and accepting and it's fun when the families get together, when we get
Yes.
together with Christine's family and it's you just you want to say I want to get pinch myself. Am I in a fairy tale? How
Oh,
me? How did that happen? You know, but
well,
Amazing. I love it. I don't know about you, Liz. I think this is a great place to leave on such a high note with for other
yes.
parents and just say, hey, you know, y- like I just again, I always say I wish there was something when I was the younger, newly diagnosed mom of this little boy. I would only just wish to have something like this. And I'm just that's all we want to provide for and we want to share and expand. And like I said, yes, our kids are on a show. We get it, but I know Connor loves his job and we would be rocking and rolling doing our thing. And we have some
Even
very
without it.
happy young adults who are thriving.
I
And I loved hearing David's background, and I just love it that you were a Secret Service agent.
Hands
That's the
down,
coolest thing
hands
ever.
down my favorite like fun fact of all the moms. You just if I had a trophy,
Yeah.
I would shine it up and give it to you.
Yep. Debbie
I
wins. Debbie wins.
no, 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 no. It was just before life, it was somebody struggling who really was never introduced to college, like a 4-year college. I mean, we couldn't afford that. We
Yeah.
couldn't do that. My parents worked and I didn't know any better. I mean, I really didn't know any better, and it just kind of happened.
Do what makes
It's so
sense. You do what
it's
makes sense.
awesome. I think it's so cool.
Well,
Yeah, it's
Debbie,
so
thank you
cool.
so
So
much
cool.
for sharing an hour of your week with us and talking to other parents out there who listen. And we just appreciate you. We are going to try to figure out next time we get to see you in person. That'd be wonderful.
Hopefully,
Yes.
hopefully.
When we can plan just a mom's only trip. That's what I'm
Oh,
excited
let's
about.
do it. I'm for that. I'm for that.
Me too.
Well, listen, we always leave our episodes with a little tagline, and we're going to say it today. Everybody, we love you, mean it.
Love you, mean it.
Love you, mean it.
Thank
Bye.
you, Debbie.
Thanks,
Bye.
Debbie.
Bye.
Lastly, everybody, if you liked hanging out with us today, do us a favor, hit the follow button, leave a rating, or drop a quick review. It helps more than you know. And if you really loved it, send it to a friend who needs to hear this. And if you're interested in sponsoring a future episode, please send us an email at talktomesismail@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and love you, mean.